You face the boss of blades.
Hello, Slingers, and today we are showcasing the semifinals feature match between Fermentor, aka Scotty, and Max. They are playing for third place in this case. Then whoever wins this will get third place in the tournament. So Fermentor is going second here. He has birds, a centaur sage, a tusker, and a behemoth, keeping the 1 and 2 drop in his opening hand. Drawing a second birds and a worm's wake. So he could potentially do a turn 1 birds, turn 2 worm's wake if he so chooses, or a birds, then a tusker, then a worm's wake, which could also be very strong. I think Sundancer is probably one of the stronger plays with Worm's Wake because of turn 1 Sundancer, turn 2 Worm's Wake, and flip. But Max is starting with the birds, drawing a Gutfire here. Fermentor making the birds play to be able to trigger his werewolves a little bit easier. And he's definitely eyeing doing the Tusker on 2 here. So we'll see what Max does on his end. And he looks like he's doing a Channeler. Interestingly, it is not buffed. That means there is no creature in Max's hand that has 5 or power greater. So that is very valuable information that Max has essentially given for free here. Though there wasn't any particular reason to contend the board birds on birds. But it may actually be one of his only plays. Max might actually have a top-heavy hand, but he's going to go ahead and -1 to Grudge Match with the Channeler. I particularly think Grudge Match is arguably the strongest removal in the game. However, if you're using it to straight trade, it is almost always going to be a -1. So, I mean, if that's what he has to do, that's what he do. So we're seeing a Gas Staff here and a Worm's Wake, which will actually use all of Fermentor's mana. But the Gas Staff will trigger, give him the extra mana, and he'll be able to get a large amount of tempo on the board doing this play. But it will take up 2 of his extra mana slots, I believe going down to 6 mana when he gains his next mana crystal. And now we see a Birds grudge matching the Gas Staff also as a -1. So Fermentor is in a very strong position here. Max essentially just -1 himself twice. He's only got 1 ramp spell off the Rampant Growth. And Fermentor's going to get in an easy 5 damage. What I would think he'd probably do is just do the Dance with the Devils to be able to force some more damage next turn. Let's see what Max does here. Daybreak would be very strong if he Daybreaks the Worm. Looking like he's just passing turn. So yeah, he definitely has a top-heavy hand that does not have a Crush of Worms or Craterhoof Behemoth. And that's just going to give Fermentor the ability to just hit for 9 damage here, pushing Max down to 13 health. And Fermentor could just drop a Hermit, which will flip. I would have just played a Gutfire. But it looks like he's going to trade off a Gutfire, deal the 1 damage. Birds on top to get the mana. And play a Boar on top of the second Gutfire to push Max to 10 health. So the next Gutfire is going to do guaranteed 3 damage when it dies, and he could potentially just put it on top and then put another. Looks like Max has a Lava Wave to just clear the board, and Purple Fermentor taking away a lot of his momentum here. But Fermentor does have a Hell Rider. Very good top deck here to just hit for 5 damage, pushing Max to 5 health. And then he could just play the board and potentially threaten a lethal here, or a lethal off a Gutfire. See what Max does. He's just going to go ahead and scoop it up. I'm guessing he just didn't have anything worth being able to block here, or he just sees the 2 damage and no way to clear the Hell Rider, as well as another hit from Gutfire, though I don't believe he knows he has the Gutfire. It's a good game to fermentor on his win. And now players will be sideboarding to try and see what the other player is doing and try and counter them as well. So let's see if what fermentor is going to do here for his sideboard plan. And he keeps his sideboard as a second deck so that he can remember what it is. I personally just, access the site link and just do it from there, so I don't have to go back and forth and stuff. Let's see what he might put in. He might put in the Hunter's Moon here. Just thinking of taking out Gutfires. So one Gutfire is out. He's putting in the Hunter's Moon to try and get the instant flip. And looks like that's going to be his only change going into game 2. Interesting take, taking out the Gutfire, considering it does guarantee some medium amount of damage, but Gutfire scores particularly strong, mainly when he has access to Centaur Sage and a smaller deck, so he could potentially loop Gutfires. So we may still be able to see that. That'd be really cool. But let's go ahead and see if Max can make this into a 3-game match. All right, let's see. Max is going first yet again. Fermentor starting with a Dancer, Hellrider, Gatstaff, keeping Dancer and the Gatstaff, and as well as getting a Hunter's Moon. So he could have a very, very aggressive start here. If he were able to go like a turn 1 Sundancer, turn 2 Gatstaff, Hunter's Moon swing, that could be a very strong turn to play for Fermentor, especially if Max does not have a good play on turn 1. Max playing out the Channeler the Might. Yet again, it is not a buff Channeler Might, which just provide a large amount of information, but looks like Fermentor just has his own Channeler the Might, but this time it's buffed. That is actually better, because playing the Dancer on 1 would not be particularly good or necessary. So he could do it. He's just gonna swing here though. I think Max would just take it, to be honest. I would have just taken the gamble, honestly. It would have been a lot of attackers going in. But he's just slow playing it here, playing the Sundancer, playing the birds. He could have gone on Dancer, Agitators, Hunter's Moon, flip both. He's likely just saving the Hunter's Moon, though, for if he draws a Daybreak. Which, that makes sense if he does do that. Max getting another blocker on the field with a Gatstaff and flip, going up to 7 mana on his next turn. So both players looking pretty good. But that is very strong draw here with the Lava Wave. Fermentor thinking about swinging here. I wouldn't particularly consider it. He would likely block the 4-3 with the 5-1. And if anything, he would be able to set up a Lava Wave the next turn or a Crater Hoof. So it doesn't particularly make sense to swing, but Max is going to down trade his Channeler and trade up for the 4-3. So that's still pretty good for a Fermentor here. He did not get particularly punished on that particular hit, but I think he may not have realized the fact he was going up to 8 mana next turn. But there is a Hermit of the Flock. Gain 2 health. And looking like we're going to have that hit here with the Daybreak and the Hunter's Moon potentially, but honestly, I think it's just better to just go for a Crater Hoof here. I don't think the Lava Wave is particularly needed here, but he is going for the Daybreak. And and the Hunter's Moon to flip it. And then he's likely just going to swing with the Daybreak, to be honest. Can't really see him swinging with Channeler or Gas Staff and just trading for 1/1. It's not particularly worth it. And then Max is just going to take the 5. If Max has a Lava Wave here, it's really good. It's just really good if he does. But he's dropping a Channeler. This time it is actually buffed. Just passing the turn. So, yeah, definitely a Crater Hoof play here. It was down to 5 mana, 6 mana for the following turn, but he can just swing out almost completely and just force blocks here. And, yep, blocking the 7/3 makes sense with the 3/3, chumping the 7/6. But then he's going to take a total of 12 to his face, going to 10 health. Then depending on what Max does here, if he has like a Crush Worms or something, he's just going to Day of Judgment. Yeah, that's pretty strong here, unfortunately. So Fermentor's probably just going to rebuild, play the Boar, play the Gutfire Devil, and then try and clear a path whereby he wins with Lava Wave. Hopefully maybe getting some of his land triggers to put up some creatures. Max is going to drop the Primal Summoning here to draw his 4 cards and put a creature into play. And it looks like Max is just going to drop a Strahd, make both players go to 10, and essentially be like, hey, Fermentor, do you have a way to deal with Strahd? If not, I just win. And playing the birds, gaining 1 health. I think it might be that, though. I don't believe Fermentor has an out to a Strahd here, actually. So, yeah, that's probably going to do it here. Yeah, it's got a Grudge Match, Lava Wave that he can't play, and a Channeler. Strahd just swings for 10, and that's its game. Let's see. Just thinking out his options, though. We'll see. I mean, Max could just take it, to be honest. Not care. We could block with the birds. Block with the birds. Grudge Match. Then playing the Channeler. And then he's just going to hit the concede button. Yep, because Strahd is just going to come and finish the game by swinging out and doing exact lethal. So just an early Strahd on, I believe that was like turn 8 off of Primal Summoning to basically be like, do you have an answer? If not, it's game. And it turns out Fermentor did not have the answer in this instance. So now it looks like we're going on to a game 3 to play for 3rd in the Mythic League Tournament 6. And Fermentor is just going in. So we shall see if Max decides to sideboard. Looking like Max is just going in as well. His strategy did work. Whatever he may have boarded in. So let's go ahead and see how game 3 turn out. And this time Fermentor is actually going first. Hand completely dead. 2 Hell Riders and an online Domri. Going to Gatstaff, a Lava Wave, and a Tusker. Which is, it's not particularly bad here. Lava Wave is definitely a part of the win condition Fermentor would want. But the Tusker's 2-drop. He does have a Birds on 1. So that will give him a live turn 1 play into a Tusker, then a Gatstaff. And then hopefully being able to Lava Wave about turn 5. So Max is doing the Rampant Growth on turn 1. Doesn't particularly see to throw a blocker out. I mean, he's only being predicted on by 0/1 birds. And Centaur Sage is a good draw here as well. Assuming he is able to draw another creature to potentially get a boar to start drawing off the Sage. Max is just going to drop a turn 2 Hermit here to put out a chump blocker with the sheep. And looking like Fermentor is just going to swing and just going to take the chump with the sheep. And then drop the Gatstaff, who will flip and put Fermentor up to 7 mana on his following turn. And then Max has a Gatstaff of his own, so he will also be going up to 7 mana on his following turn. And of course, the Hermit will flip into a 4/4. And there is a Fermentor's Hermit as well, so more than likely he's going to swing, maybe force a couple trades. I particularly would plan to just Lava Wave next turn, so I would not have swung there, but that's fine. He's going to play the Hermit, and that will give him a Ward board, and also drop the Channeler to be a 3/3. So still pressuring a potential Lava Wave to do for 8 damage here. But another play he could have done was to keep the Channeler in his hand and do a Centaur Sage plus a boar plus a Channeler on the following turn, drawing a few cards and demanding an answer to the Centaur Sage. But Max is just going to drop a large amount of creature on the board, 2 birds and a Hermit that will flip. That is a pretty obvious. We're just going to Lava Wave here turn. And then he's going to swing out and go for 8 damage against Max's his 2 cards. But Max does have access to Primal Summoning. He does have access to just playing a Strahd. Though Fermentor does have a Birds. And Primal Summoning is played here. And it's going to go ahead and be a Crush Worms, which pretty much just brick walls Fermentor's board here. Unless he's able to get something good going on. There's a Daybreak. And the Daybreak is going to hit one of the Crush Worms. He could have also just played the Centaur Sage. But he's just going to attack with the sheep to see if Max blocks. Now, if he was going to do that, he should have done it the Daybreak after swinging, because then he would be killing a Worms here instead of just targeting one. But he's just keeping the Daybreak out anyway, so he didn't flip it because he played the boar. Max is just full swinging here. He doesn't actually need to worry about being hit with anything that would kill his Crush Worms. They're all going to pretty much survive any way that Fermentor would block here. And chumping the Crush Worms with 4. And then taking the final Crush Worms, hitting for 5. That is actually technically a misplay. He should not have blocked the Crush Worms that was targeted by the Daybreak. He should have blocked the Crush Worms that was not targeted by the Daybreak, because essentially he just lost out on 3 damage on the living Crush Worms, and that would be a 6/2 instead of the Crush Worms that's already going to be taking 5 damage because of the Daybreak flip. And Fermentor is going to go ahead and just put out some more creatures. He has the Centaur Sage, and then he's going to play the Channeler. And Daybreak will also not flip here either. But it is not looking particularly good for Fermentor. The primal summoning into Crush Worms gave Max a large amount of cards, as well as essentially a very imposing field where all of his creatures are currently overtaking Fermentor's creatures. And since we're reaching towards the end game, Max is probably more positioned to win when we come to this point in the game, especially when he does have a combo that just wins him the game at some point. Trading the Gat Staff here, I personally think it would have been more effective to trade the Crush Worms that's being targeted, just so the Daybreak doesn't have a reason or care to flip. Playing a second Draga Druid to Rampant Growth, and start drawing some cards to go for potential combo. And then there is a second Grudge Match to trade up against the Daybreak. He's just going to swing with all of his worms. Fermentor can block 2 of them very effectively, but then just take the last one, going to 15. And there was finally, I think this is actually the first land trigger that Fermentor even had this entire game. I don't think he actually had any. So that's good. It's like he's going to go for the Daybreak to be able to take out the Crush Worms. Deciding whether or not he's going to go ahead and take out a Draga Druid here, which is fine. Putting out a reach blocker so that he doesn't lose immediately to Strahd plus haste. And Max has a Centaur Sage of his own this time, turns out. And he's going to go ahead and Daybreak and draw a card off the Centaur Sage, targeting Fermentor's Daybreak, once again removing his ability to block with reach. Swinging here would be incorrect. He would just block with the transform Daybreak and trade, and then Daybreak would essentially serve no purpose in that regard. But looking like he's just playing out another attacker. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a pretty obvious block here with Daybreak, because it will trade, and then he will not gain any advantage when and if the Daybreak Ranger flips. So here, I believe it's just a Crater Hoof here. Crater Hoof is the correct play easily. He pretty much just has to go for swinging out. He's going to play out another Emberling here. And we'll see how that fares. Max being at a healthy 28 health at this point. And the Crater Hoof is going to trade with the Centaur Sage. The Boar is going to trade with the Daybreak. Wide Boyer. And Max is going to block with the Elvish Archer, leaving Fermentor with the only creature on board being a 6/4. Max is just going to drop a Primeval Titan, going up to 12 mana, and a Channeler of Might as well, which is buffed, and an Elvish Forest Guide to give him a 1 of 3 spells. And Fermentor drawing a Huntress Moon, which does not particularly serve any form of reasonable purpose here, unfortunately. And a War Boar as well. Primeval Titan being extremely annoying. And he's just going to swing with a single Emberling, which will likely be blocked by either the 3/2, yep, or chumped by the Primeval Titan. But keeping the Primeval Titan on the board Makes it so that it doesn't immediately die to a Lava Wave. But if Max just has Strahd plus haste, then that is game. He has 6 cards remaining in deck. Fermentor doing the check. And it's just going to be a Lava Wave here. And that's going to put Fermentor at 5 health. So if Max had like a creature that had 5 power and a hasten, he could have done that and then just gone for game. Is a Dance of the Devils and a Hellrider here. So Hellrider just acting essentially as a chump, and Dance of the Devils, essentially, if he lives, it will help a little bit, but does not actually give him any blockers. And Fermentor getting hit with the Treetop, deactivating his Dance of the Devils. And then Max confidently playing a Strahd plus haste to end the game. Good try, Fermentor.
Fool me, so I put my mask on. Keep the tool me, gotta keep the 9 high. Flexing Louis V, yeah, keep my cash on. Sticking true to me, I never had a gas off. I'ma pop off, yeah, I said I'll pop off.